your poll for this. This is how they're pulling it off.
Yeah.
It's in the policy. It's not in how they appear on camera.
No. But now so much of it is about how you appear on camera and how good of a speaker you are and what your presentation is, rather than the depth of what is behind that presentation.
Because that's a lot easier than telling people what you're actually going to do.
Yeah. And if you tell people what you're going to do, then you have to try to live up to it too then. And that's something that people have a little bit of trouble doing a lot of times, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's been a wild week in politics, weekend especially.
Now, when you saw the agenda for city council meeting, what was your first thought?
I knew it was going to be a long day. My reasoning for why it was going to be long wasn't why. I saw it, the first few were public hearings. I expected, then when I got to city council last night, it was kind of full. So I expected a lot of people to be there for that, and it was going to take up a lot of time in the first half. Lo and behold, 3 of the 5 hours last night was after the little intermission they had, and it was on budget and the chamber EDC's biannual discussion.
Yeah, I caught some social media chatter. Some people talked to me, say, "Oh, you seen the agenda?" And I hadn't seen it yet. So Sunday, I finally looked at it, and I will say,
pull it up.
There's a new system in place.
Yep.
You get on the website. No longer the PDFs under the agenda item.
Yep.
They're on the screen to the left. So in some ways, it's not as convenient. Some ways it is more convenient. Now you can download them and do whatever.
It's better and worse.
Yeah. It's just different,
without a doubt.
But that's, if there's one thing I want to get across to people, it's become involved. That's how you become a better citizen.
Yeah.
Become involved, pay attention to this stuff. And I think it's one thing about the tax situation we're in is more people are starting to pay attention. Don't forget about the school board. Don't forget about the park district. Don't forget about Ward County Commission, because they're all part of your property taxes as well.
Exactly. And that's a big election coming up this fall too.
Right. But pay attention and look at those PDFs, especially the stuff that is under consent. And consent means what? In one vote, we're going to approve all these items. And some of the time there's 25 items.
Exactly. They're multiple. There was 12 last night, and one of them they pulled for further discussion we'll get to. And that's one thing we do like to do at the Dakotan. I will have an article out on the last night's city council event. Will be out tonight sometime. Make sure you check it out. We have all of those consent items highlighted in there, and we will have links to where you can look at what they all mean in depth. And it's the one item that I have pulled was, I think, item 6. It was the purchase of 2 dump trucks, or 2-ton pickups with dump beds, I think it was. And that was an interesting little thing that new councilman Rob Fuller decided to pull out. And
yeah, and I don't disagree with him. And the local bid was $12,000, so $6,000 per vehicle.
Yeah,
higher than the non-local bid.
Yeah, and there were only 2 bids available.
Yep. Now you can argue, $12,000. Do we save that? Well, it is local. They pay taxes here. That's a great point. Now there used to be a rule. It's changed, but I think it used to be within 5% they could go with the local bid. Now I'm glad it was brought up, because I had to be reminded of it. If federal funds are used, that doesn't really work.
Yep. All of a sudden, then, if there's $1 of federal funding in something, we have to abide by every federal standard at that point.
There is no local jurisdiction.
No, it goes straight to the top at that point.
If it were all general fund from property tax revenue, then we could have done that.
Yeah.
But the rules are the rules.
And I think one thing there was a lot of debate too was the wording of policy. It was the lowest and best bid. So it leads a lot of subjectivity there for how they can handle that.
That's a pretty gray policy.
It really feels like it at points there. Like I understand that, because I think it was Councilman Pittner made a point that, if we just pick local businesses, then we're not even get bids from anyone from out of state if we just go local. And I think that was fair, but at the same time, we don't want to never pick our local people, because a lot of times they probably do have to have higher bids. They have different expenses here. We're in North Dakota. Lo and behold, as I think someone mentioned last night, we're in the middle of the country. We're at the end of a lot of transportation lines, so it costs more for goods to get here.
Yeah, without a doubt.
It's just one of those things. I mean, people have to. It's an interesting thing to balance between the two. Of, do we pick the local company because they're local, or do we just take the best price?
And I can see both sides of that.
Without a
There's
doubt.
local property taxes being paid by this bidder, but the rules state, and then you also have people as, let's save every dime we can. Let's save the $12,000.
Exactly. And at that point, and to me and you, $12,000 is quite a bit of money.
No, I'm a millionaire.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, it's chump change to you. But to the city of Minot, that is pennies on a dollar. And I think it was, I don't remember, one of the department heads that came up and spoke. He mentioned, if we do make it a blanket policy and we can go within 5% or 10%, whatever it was of the bids, on a $70,000 vehicle, that's a couple $1,000. But if you start looking at multi-million-dollar projects, all of a sudden that becomes hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And it's one of those things that it requires a good balance to that I don't have an answer to.
No. And well, if I would have won, I guess the answer is, look, you got to follow the rules.
How would you have voted for that? Would you have voted in favor of the out-of-state bid or in favor of the local bid?
I would have, first I would have voiced my opinion,
of course,
which would have been to support local, but you got to follow the rules.
Yep.
And here's the problem with that. When you bring in the fact that federal funds are used in this department, well, now it becomes even more gray, because
can we guarantee
general funds for this vehicle specifically, or is it
like, can we guarantee the money coming specifically for the vehicle rather than, or is coming specifically from local vehicle rather than any federal funding going into this?
And that's where I think Lakefield was on top of it. I'll give credit when and where credit is due.
Without a doubt.
He explained that very well.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. He did a good job with that. And I think, and it ended up failing, or well, it was approved to purchase the vehicles, but not the local bid. So it went, I think unsurprisingly, went 4-3.
And the other part that we need to mention here is where the bid came from, Fergus Falls. It's part of the state's bid.
Yeah,
they're part of the bid process. So we're getting a break essentially on or through the state means.
Yep. Without a doubt. That's a good way to look at it. And one other thing, I mean, they had no answers to it, and I think is interesting why there only was 2 bids. I know a lot of times they don't get more than that, but I think it would be good to try to have as many as you can for something like that.
Yeah, you would like to see 7 or 8, but also
if they put the word out and only 2 people come back to them, what can you do at that point too?
That's exactly it. Yeah. And I don't know what the specs were. Was it, obviously we're talking about Ford vehicles here. It was a Wesley bid.
Yeah.
Was it specific towards those vehicles? I don't know. Yeah,
without a doubt. That's a fair point. And I know they did mention at the end too, Wesley is who they're going to have be the servicer of all the vehicles.
So they are going to
still use Wesley.
Still get Minot taxpayer dollars.
Exactly. Even if we don't buy from them, we're still using them to just fix the trucks. Worst case scenario. And after that, then I think they moved on. That was that. So it's still approved to purchase the truck. It passed 4-3. But I think after that, when they moved on to talking about the Kemper lot, was it not?
Yeah, we thought this was done and dead, right?
It was well, that's was a potential thought. And I heard from Lisa Olson a couple weeks ago. She said that if Paul Pittner was there and there was no restriction, she planned on offering the item up, and it was offered again today or yesterday
under a different use.
Yes, that's the interesting part. It is now designated as part of the flood zone project,
which made my head spin, to be honest.
Yep. That was a very interesting little, because now all of a sudden, if by using this land as flood packaging and building a water pump station on it, it could help improve the flow of water and the risk, or mitigate the risk of flooding in the area it's by. And
can we back up a second?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 weeks ago, when it failed, was proposed to buy this for Public Works because it's next to Public Works and they can use it for laydown, which is just acreage for laying down construction equipment,
yep,
supplies, what have you.
Excess storage they can use.
It's what, $920,000 purchase,
yep,
I believe.
Yeah, for like 7.5 acre lot.
And long term, yes, the argument is it does make sense to buy it, but
there was no plan 2 weeks ago.
You know what? Hamburgers are inexpensive.
Without a doubt.
I'm a simple guy. Should I go buy half a beef?
It's
Yeah, long term it's going to be cheaper,
It's
but
like-
is it the sensible thing to do?
exactly.
We're not flush with cash in Minot right now. And now, I'm sorry, I just had to interject there.
No, that's a great
But
point.
now we're into its part of the flood protection program,
Yeah.
which, ironically enough, all of a sudden the design for, is it the Livingston Cooley network? I think they're calling it.
That the big one. Yep.
Yeah, and that, for people who don't know, that goes like up. It starts out past the air base,
Yep, way north,
It's
like up-
way,
Like a little south of Lake Darling, pretty much.
Yep.
And goes all the way down to like what the Sawyer area, I think, somewhere in there.
No, it feeds into. Well, it eventually will, but it
Yeah.
feeds the Mouse River.
Yeah.
If the back road to Surrey out
Mhm.
past the oil tanks.
Yep.
If you're heading out towards Surrey, it's the big slough to your left, and then it
Yep,
goes
yep.
down behind Gravel Products. There's another slough, I think, down by the railroad tracks.
That feeds into
Drawing
it.
back to childhood memories.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
And then it weaves its way back, and you don't even see it because it's all box culverts under Brick Expressway.
Yeah.
So people don't realize it's there.
No, not at all. It's effectively completely hidden. It just shifts water flow across, help mitigate the problems with a lot of that potential floodplain issues. And I think one thing that they were talking about was the likelihood of, they were weighing the parts of the likelihood of such another 100 flood event happening
Exactly. Yep.
versus the probability of this project actually happening, because we've seen in the past decade issues with that happening in city. Why not?
Yeah, and the reason, okay, a pump house is included in all this stuff that they're debating having. When you're at flood stage,
Mhm.
a flood wall has to be totally sealed.
Yeah.
Okay, you're holding the water in the riverbank
Yeah.
essentially.
It's
Now,
a
if you have a rain event, both sides of the flood wall flood.
Yeah.
That's the issue if the gates are closed.
Yep.
Now, traditionally, our flood events are going to be caused by snow melt.
Yep.
But 2011 was very different because
That was
what
now-
actually happened was at a high water, we were at high water,
Yep.
and then we got 6 inches of rain all across the basin.
Yep.
And we were done.
we were drenched.
There's nothing
No.
that could be done.
Not at that stage.
So this is the same thing. That's a big watershed.
Mhm.
Like the pump house that they're talking about would be 2.5 times the size of the one on Broadway.
Exactly.
And
Massive.
that's, so
That the one on Broadway is huge.
right. So that'd be $80 million. Well, yes, you do want to save the money. Here's my problem with how they went about it. Usually there's public hearing on all these designs. There's public input because there's federal, state. Well, there's probably not federal dollars for this one, but now we rushed that and we said, okay, we're buying this property.
That's the big
Like-
thing. And Councilman Mike Blessum used the term shady, and I think that's fair, because 2 weeks ago this was something they had no plans with. They just wanted to use as excess storage because it was connected to land the city already owned. Maybe they could subdivide it or sell part of it off later on. Something they didn't have any concrete plans. Now you fast forward 2 weeks, and all of a sudden you have this plan where this 7.5 acre lot is going to be just a vital and pivotal part of the flood project.
Let's not forget now, several times it was mentioned, oh, the optics of this don't look good.
Yeah,
Really? You
yeah.
don't say.
Even
So there was a motion to table it. The
Mhm.
motion to table failed, I
Yep,
believe.
yep,
Or it was
Councilman-
tabled for
Councilman
30 days.
Yep, Rob Fuller wanted to table it for 30 days, allow a public forum. But apparently there's so at one point we were offered the land, but apparently now there's another bidder involved that potentially the landowner could sell to if we wanted to wait 30 days.
Oh, yeah.
And that was part of their reasoning for why they wanted to buy it now, because if we did table it for a public forum 30 days from now, it might not be here.
Well, my millions of dollars, I might have wanted to.
Maybe you wanted to
run
get
there.
in. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong buying property on spec. You can make a mint, right?
Well, that's the thing. And I think that's on the one side of it. I think Councilwoman Lisa Olson made a fair point. If nothing happens, worst case, we can just sell it, and odds are land prices won't go down. So we break even, but you really don't want, when they're presenting this plan, you want it to happen. And
The process has been skewed.
Yeah.
And that's my issue with it. Now, are we also creating enemies at the state level?
Mhm.
Because now we purchased this, it's going to be part of flood control.
Mhm.
When you receive that 75%, then the city is paying 920, and
Yeah.
we're hoping to get 75% of that reimbursed through the state for flood protection.
Yeah, because it's becoming a flood protection zone or part of the flood zone.
So what happens now? Can we sneakily build a building on it when we're really not supposed to?
Just for the heck of it? Could they still potentially subdivide part of it off and sell some of it? Like what's the future with that at this point? Obviously, they say with these projected plans and building the pump house, we save over however many years it was, what, 40 some $million because of this pump house that would be built. Which
and
is just
this is why people don't trust government. If there's stuff said and done leading up to or behind closed doors.
What if had they 2 weeks ago, this wasn't even an item and they brought to it
2 weeks ago, it wasn't.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So say the lot purchase wasn't even up for grabs 2 weeks ago. It all comes as this single package now. Do you think that looks a lot better?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, I don't think you get nearly the pushback you do at that point. It comes to this as this part of the flood project, rather than just saying there's some land available. We think we should buy it because we can.
Yeah, and that's what scares me at the state level. Are we setting ourselves up? Because we've got the Red River flood protection stuff. Like we're going to be battling about who gets more money.
Without a doubt, that's that and Fargo has a lot of pull.
Yes, they do.
They're the most populous state or city in the state, and they have the money behind that too. They have a lot of power. It's Fargo.
And now the little bit I could see, the plan is to put box culverts and drain it into the river there. And there would, the gate structure that they're talking about would actually be north of, what is that, Burdick?
Yeah. Of Burdick. Yeah.
So yes, there could be some savings, but boy, the process was ugly.
It was, yeah. And even Ross agreed that it was shady, but he said he had all the faith and trust in what was Ackerman Estfold, and said that if they think that this is the right move, that he is behind them and he will support them. I think he said, I'm paraphrasing, that Ryan Ackerman was the most experienced or knowledgeable person on flood protection, Minot, something along those lines, he said. So. And
I'm not going to disagree with that statement, but as a citizen, I will break a little bit and say nobody should be given that much authority when they're not an elected official.
That's a fair point. And it's a really contentious area with that, because it did end up in a 4-3 vote after it was a 3-3 tie, which went down. And we talked about that 2 weeks ago. We were saying if Paul Pittner was there 2 weeks ago, it probably would have got passed at that point. I think we're
going to see a lot of
4-3s.
votes.
That's the thing. And that's what we've talked about on the show prior, is we don't want to see it become just the Minot City Council in the state of North Dakota has nonpartisan local elections for a reason. We don't want to start seeing partisanship being brought in, where now all of a sudden there's two sides. We have the 3 and we have the 4, and they're almost always, either it's 7-0 or it's 4-3. And I don't think that's, I think that the discourse and debate is healthy, but I don't think just having two factions fighting against each other is.
No, two factions is not good. But then again, a 7-0 vote, which you saw all the time, is one faction.
At the same point, exactly.
I want to see policy discussed and why voting one way or the other is the best way to go. Yeah, that's what I want to see.
Without a doubt, that's the best way to do it. And if you can get that, and you can have good discussion and good discourse, you can, even if you don't agree with the outcome, you can at least see clearly the reasoning behind it.
Yep.
And after the Kemper thing, that's when they started. Is that when they brought up the Broadway Circle project?
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember anything about this. No.
It was hit all blurred together.
Yes. And the Broadway Circle. And this is where I might upset some people.
Sure.
The
floor is yours.
I am about accountability. Yes, it was NDR grant revenue. Going way back, Minot received the $74 million, big win for us after the flood. Hooray, yippee. But there are some stipulations that go along with grant money. There always is. There's strings attached. Zakian, the former NDR grant director,
sure,
he was pretty knowledgeable. Some people didn't like him. There was local people who thought we can spend the money better than how you can advise us, because he would put the brakes on things and say, no, you can't do that. It's going way back now. This is old time city council. They wanted to get rid of him. Remember, he resigned.
Sure.
And then he withdrew his resignation letter.
Yep.
At that time, he did not have civil service protection. So they were
Okay.
going to say, no, you're done. You're gone.
You get the axe at that point.
Now, I can't help but wonder if Zaki, now he did retire. He left for other reasons.
Yeah, that was the,
but he did leave. If he would, for whatever reason, we have a time machine, right?
Yeah, go back.
Okay,
Hindsight's 2020.
He's still here. If he were still the NDR grant administrator, would this have gone the way it is? Because now the NDR grant administrator, and I'm not picking on a person, I'm picking on policy.
More general, yeah.
That person has civil service protection.
Yeah.
Why do they now in the position didn't before?
That's a fair point.
I'm sorry, but when you cost the city $1.3 million, maybe you should have been fired.
At that, yeah.
If your title is the grant administrator or grant supervisor, and you're not picking up the phone and saying, hey, Matson's, this entity said they paid you, did they? Like, that's your role. That's your job.
You have to confirm those things.
And now like $1.3 million. If that happens in the private sector,
that's a hit. Someone's losing their job.
Like,
I mean, depending on how big the company it is, but in Minot terms, generally that's a massive
that's
loss.
a huge mistake.
Yeah, that's massive in Minot terms.
And now taxpayers are asked to, and now it gets even weird because we put other portions of that $74 million, which is also, by the way, how some of the courthouse was paid for. So it wasn't all property tax.
Yep.
No, not the courthouse, the new city hall.
City city hall. Yep. Downtown. Yep.
We can't put that in jeopardy. That's why we decided, okay, we dig into reserves to try and make this better. But now this is where we get into, well, do we sell it off? Well, there's a 20-year government stipulation to what that property can be used for and at what rates. So how marketable is it to be sold to say, this building has to be used for XYZ, it charged at this rate. Who's going to buy it? That's
the thing.
So then it was a lease proposal.
Yeah, which is what more of the middle ground area between the two. Either the city just completely keeping it under our thumb and administrating it all, or just selling it off and trying to once again wash our hands of it, which I don't think that's worked out.
No, and now we're in a position where the city is going to be the landlord of commercial property.
Yeah, at least temporarily, but for at least.
So it's ugly, and I'm not in favor of that. But do you make the best of what you can? This is an ugly,
because it's a mess of a situation now. You feel bad for the people involved, the residents that are in those income housing areas, and the people that the commercial business owners are affected by it.
The commercial business aspect was part of it. It was sold as subsidizing or helping pay for the whole operation.
Yep.
I'm not slighting the renters in the commercial space
not
at
by
all or
any
anything
means.
like that.
It could have been anyone in there. It's the area it was designated.
It's a mess.
And so the city did go on to approve the idea of a lease to own proposal, where they're going to find someone to come in and start taking the lease over, and they will eventually work into an ownership role. That's what happened, correct?
The RP apparently will go out sometime. That's the direction
that they were
council was giving to staff.
Yes. And we'll see how it goes from here. But at least in the interim, meantime, the city's going to be in charge of that down there.
And I will say, this kind of shelter, this kind of space, like, it is needed.
Yeah, without a doubt. We need,
for people who don't know, I'm very pedestrian. I can't drive due to my vision loss. I run into some crazy stuff. There's a lot more homeless people out there than people realize.
Yeah, without a doubt. And there's a balance between it, because you have to have a place for people, but at the same time, what's causing them to be homeless?
Right. And if you don't have a place, well, they make their place.
They will find a place. I mean, obviously, North Dakota.
You talk to anybody at the courthouse, the library, their public buildings, they know.
Exactly. Like, there's a few months out of the year where it's exceptionally hard for them. But right now, this time of year especially, I mean, you can go anywhere right now. And it's a problem that is difficult to address, especially from a city perspective, but it's something that's definitely noticeable, whether it be on North Hill around the areas with some of those hotels up there, or sometimes even downtown. You'll see some interesting figures walking around Main Street, 3rd Street area. It's nothing against the people themselves, but it's just things stem from this, and it creates incidents that are unnecessary. And hopefully
hopefully this will work out.
To go back to
knock on wood, there's all kinds of bids.
Yeah. And someone professional and respectable comes in and takes over and can actually,
because there is a need for it.
Yeah,
there really is.
Without a doubt. But whether the city should be the one administering that or not is debatable. But at the same time, right now, what do? We either wash our hands of it, or we beat stuff up and at least temporarily take over and hold the reins till we find someone.
And let's not forget that we still don't know, because there's still an investigation going on.
Yeah, there's still a settlement that's that needs to be reached.
Settlement. And I'm not slighting the board or anybody else for, I won't even mention their name, but because everything, as far as I know, is towards one individual.
Yeah.
So that entity, I think their intent is to do good work. Things just got very out of hand,
a little skewed.
The tail was wagging the dog, so to speak, as far as boards go.
That's a good way to look at it. It just one after the other happened with it. So hopefully this time they'll get it figured out. It won't have any issues, and it'll be a seamless transition.
Hey, you got to be hopeful.
Exactly.
Right?
We gotta have faith in it. But after that, I think that was about when they went to recess, wasn't it? They had a little break.
No, they had public comment.
Oh, sure.
Public appearances.
Yep. If you want to, you can go ahead.
I don't fault anybody. I have spoke.
Mm-hmm.
It's a chance to address things.
People should take advantage of that.
Yes,
time.
They absolutely should. Now, you have to be honest. You can ask the city council anything you want.
Mm-hmm.
They're not obligated to tell you anything.
Yeah, they don't have to reply.
They don't. But some of the time, asking the right question and watching them sit there and go, it means something.
Yeah.
Former Councilman Stephen Padregula spoke, which I don't blame him at all. However, any guess as to how long he talked?
I don't know a specific time, but I can say it was over 5 minutes, which is the time they ask everyone to try to keep.
Should every citizen be limited to 5 minutes and some be granted 12? Because he talked for over 12 minutes.
Sure. That's an
now it is the chair.
Yeah.
With Minot as the mayor.
Yeah.
He has the right to listen to someone speak or come off.
Yeah.
He has cut other people off
without a doubt. And I think if you're going and you seem like you're wrapping up, if you get to 6 minutes, I don't see any issues with that. But it felt he made points at times too, but he mentioned something we got to repeat and talk about. Yeah, that's that slush fund comment.
And this is coming from the
private
budget retreat, if you want to call it that, or the council retreat. It wasn't just budget. And the term slush fund was used.
Yeah, talking about
and how that has a nefarious connotation. Mm-hmm. And you know what? He's right.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that shouldn't be used.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the previous council, what did they vote to do with the conflict of interest guideline when it comes to the Magic Fund?
Go ahead.
They got rid of it. 7-0 it passed. Wow. So now there's no conflict of interest as long as you say, hey, I'm going to financially benefit from this. It's my project. I'm sitting on council, or I am on the board of directors for EDC, and it doesn't matter.
It is what it is at that point. I'm here, so here we are.
So now, obviously, there's the feeling in town, the general connotation that there's a good old boys club, and how does that work? And Padregula, which I agree, he mentioned, like, where is this bad spending?
He called
anything
out
in the budget. He wanted to see 20 or 30 items, and it's not that. Maybe it's my theory. Someone contact me later and say you're stupid on this. Fine, let's go ahead. Sure. Hey, I ran for office. I was
going to say, I'm sure you haven't, not heard that before.
But we're in the position where all these people are asked to pay taxes, and it's getting hard.
Yep.
Things are tough. So what happens when somebody doesn't have to pay taxes?
Yep. When they just get a complete exception.
That to me is the nefarious part. Now, I want people more involved. Go to the public comment period, contact your elected officials, as well as chamber EDC board members.
Like, you're watching this, you probably already are relatively involved at this point, and
Right.
you should be, but this is a good starting point. But go from here, and like you're saying, Leif, go watch the meetings, go voice your opinion. Even if you don't voice opinion, just go and show up and be present and take in what's going on, get the general idea and the feel for it all. It's good to be present.
I don't think it's unwarranted to ask elected officials. No, there's been a lot going on this summer with news in Minot and the state. I want to ask every elected official if they are invested in Epic.
Sure.
As well as the board of directors for Chamber EDC.
They're hurting right now.
Because we saw letter after letter come out of Chamber EDC endorsing the Epic projects.
Yep.
And I only think it's fair that they say, no, I'm not an investor, or yes, I am.
Yep.
No, they don't have to answer that.
Sure, of course.
But I know some people who are invested. They said, yeah, this sucks. I'm taking a hit.
It's a hit, without a doubt.
But also, the chamber has a $634,000 yearly contract.
Or maybe
with the city.
The better question wouldn't be if they are, but if they were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because maybe it's gotten dumped, and not insinuating any, is just, it's a good question to ask. And at this point, after the rough circumstances, they could have dumped
and here's
stuff.
why I say that. Because if the plan was to make money off a tax abatement, which in its simplest form is a tax increase on everybody else, while my project
gets
along without paying taxes, and I'm profiting. That's why I'm saying that. Like, the devil's in the details, and that's why policy, it's hard to follow. Without
a doubt.
But
it gets boring, believe me. But it's necessary, though. People have to keep an eye on it. Our elected representatives work for us. We don't work for them. But to hold, we are responsible to hold them accountable.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not saying anyone's doing a negative job with that, but just simply saying, as a citizen, that's our job, is to hold our elected officials responsible and accountable for what they do.
Transparency is not a bad thing.
Not even remotely. It's as good as it can get. I mean, some very specific and rare instances, not even typically more at a national level. Maybe there's some things you don't want to let out for a certain time, just for whatever. But generally speaking, you want it to be as transparent as you can, especially at a local level.
Oh, you have to be.
Yeah.
I would think.
I mean, you should have to be at the very least. And hopefully who we have in there, I think, is going to do a good job right now. I think they're, at the very least, they're going to do a very different job what's been going on the past couple of years.
Well, just the vote so far for that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see as they grow and develop too, if any other kind of voting groups start to break off, or if people start going back and forth, if we start getting some 5-2s or 4-3s the other way kind of thing. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out when we give it more time than 2 sessions. Because it's still a very, very new city council.
So then we went on to the recess, which I'm glad they have a recess.
Was necessary.
And then what was it?
After the recess, then we had a little biannual proposal from the Chamber EDC, which, albeit necessary, didn't feel like it was maybe necessary last night, just with the length of how the meeting was going. Just felt like maybe they could have done that on a different night, but I understand why you have to do it there. And then following that, there was a couple little items. There were some downtown things, but the big thing was when Harold Stewart, city manager, rolled out the 2025 budget proposals. And
ouch.
Yeah, it was about 2 hours of listening to him and the department heads go through it. The big thing that we took away from it is there's going to be a lowering in the mills come up. And what was the price? So the mill is going to go down from 120.08 to 115.07. So there's going to be a slight property tax abatement for everyone. It's going to lower. I mean, it's like 20 for every $100,000. It's like $20 or something.
But does that equate to your taxes going down if your assessment goes up?
That's the hard part.
That's the hard part.
Yeah. Are the assessments going to continue going up?
Yes.
And when does property hardly ever decreases in value? I mean, it can, obviously, and it has happened, but generally speaking, prices only go up. And how much they go up is the big question.
And talking to the city manager, Harold Stewart, I went through all the budget tours. It was a process. I say that.
Yeah, you got to sit through it.
Yes, it's very interesting
Mhm.
because I'm not. There are some city employees who do a great job, a lot of work. It's impressive.
Mhm.
The motivation that Harold Stewart is trying to say, no, there will not. Your property taxes will not be going up. Not he doesn't have a vote on it. Remember?
Exactly. This
So,
is just his
but
proposal.
this is his proposal.
Mhm.
And now there's the part I wish it would have made a little more clear was the question and answer period coming up for the special meeting, which is going to be July 30th.
2 weeks from today. Yeah.
That's not a question and answer period from citizens.
No, that's for the city council.
That's for the city council. So if you at home have a question you want your council person to ask,
contact them for sure. Get a hold of them, call them, email them, anything. They're all available online. You can find an easy way to contact them. If they get back to you or listen to you is a different story, but you can find an easy way to contact them.
Now, here's the takeaway also. It's like, what, $220 million, I think. And people think, like, that's a big shocking number.
Yeah.
What is it? 19 million is from property taxes.
Something like that. Yeah.
It's a much smaller portion than people think.
Exactly.
A lot of that is passed through with federal, state dollars. There's the grant money, like we talked about, NDR month.
Yeah.
So it's not all.
And then there's sales tax revenue that comes into the portion of it. And
all different kinds of revenue streams. So it's not, once again, policy is boring. But it's not all just, oh my God, my property taxes are going to this.
And I don't we're not advocating for higher property taxes. They be lower.
No.
But at the same time, you have to understand that just simply lowering property taxes isn't going to be a fix all for everything.
Now, when it comes to property taxes, what does it go towards? Mostly it's staffing
and public services.
Now, the one thing that the biggest takeaway for me is when I was running, and even now, the morality of public staff, especially our police officers, that's not an easy position to be in.
No, not at all.
Okay, we're running, I think it's 76%.
Yeah, they have 13 open positions, and they're hoping to fill 8 by the end of the year.
Can you imagine dealing with what police officers have to do?
It's not easy.
And only being staffed at 76%.
So everyone's working harder. Everyone's got to pull an extra load.
Like,
it's not easy.
And we're going to go through burnout. Like
and it's, it's not, a poverty wage. You're not getting rich being a cop either.
Have to do.
Exactly. You're not.
I'm kind of a wimp. The weather's been hot. I don't want to wear a black uniform. I don't walking around.
I'm borderline getting sweat in this, let alone being in something like that.
But they do provide a vital service that's becoming more and more vital. And that's an area that, I want to see funded so we can get some police officers.
Exactly.
I think that, you look at the survey that went out, that's what I think people want.
That's roads, taxes, services, more efficient services, I think was a big part of it too. It's and transparency and communication between the government. That was another big one.
Yeah.
And well, they're trying, but sometimes when they do try to get that pub forum, it got shut down. So at least an effort was put into it. And it was a fun night. And so like we were saying, 2 weeks from now, we're going to have that Q&A forum from the city council. We'll be there to cover it and write about it. We'll talk about it on the show at some point, so make sure you tune in. But it'll be an interesting one to see how they decide to question it. And then sometime in, I think it's August, City Council President Mark Janser has to put forth his budget proposal. And then from there in September or October then is when they vote on and finalize and finally approve the 2025 budget. And
I can remember the rule is from the proposal, like the first vote on the proposal, they can't increase it from there. I'm pretty sure that's correct. So that's good news, I guess. Yeah. Just depends what they throw at us. But yeah, in theory, at least it should be a little bit better. But I will give them credit, as incredibly boring and monotonous as it was an incredibly in-depth presentation on the budget last night. It was a lot to take in. It was. And remember, you can go back and watch the meeting online. Yep. It's all on YouTube. That's usually what I do, because then you can fast forward it. Exactly. You can 5 hours. You can go through what you need to go through. You can find the important parts.
It makes it a lot easier that way, and it's good for everyone to watch. It'll be good to continue on that path we have with more transparency with that budget. And they have QR codes in almost all the slides of the presentation that takes you to more in-depth procedures and talks about what the slides on, whatever department it might be. And I know at the end they had a QR code that takes you to the full itemized line by line budget. So if you are genuinely curious, you can go find that too.
And it's a fun read.
It's thrilling.
No thanks. I had to read one already.
It's just a riveting read, but it's a necessary thing for people to do too. It has to.
Yeah,
be
if
done.
you're sitting in that seat, or if you were wanting to be in that seat,
exactly, you want to you want to prepare.
Yeah,
you want to be as well prepared as you can, because preparation is key.
Yes,
having, at the very least, being prepared allows you to the least chance of failure. And if you go in there just knowing the big numbers, the final numbers, you're not going to be able to ask good questions. And 2 weeks from now, we'll find out what they are.
So do you think, okay, like we can talk about what's going to be upcoming.
Yep.
Do you think they're going to address the 3rd Street Bridge issue? Will that be done?
I think
will the inspection be?
That's the big thing. Yeah. When's that inspection going to happen from the DOT? And
I
clearly
was thinking it was supposed to be this month, but then again, the intersection at the base of the north side was supposed to be finished a month ago, and it's still. Yeah. I think it opened today.
Yeah, I know. At least last week it was still under construction, and there's still work being done.
Businesses down there.
Yeah, that's because and 3rd Street's such a vital transportation line in Minot. I mean, that's one of the main north-south routes.
Yep.
I mean, we have the state fair this week. That's going to be major, especially on parade day.
No Railway Avenue, the back road.
Exactly. Saturday morning parade day. That's going to, I mean, granted, go to the parade, you won't have to worry about it. But if you're like me, you have to go to work at 9 a.m. Saturday morning. Getting to work's not going to be fun.
No.
It's you got to leave early. You got to go all the way around town, take the bypass all the way around, and it makes it a mess. But at the same time, it's the parade. We all love. I mean, who doesn't love the parade? It's always a good time. And speaking of the fair, did you see what they're doing this year? They have metal detectors at the entrances.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep, and that is something all the entrances.
Wait, I did hear something about that. Okay.
All the entrances at the state fair this year are going to have metal detectors, so try to mitigate any issues that could potentially arise by doing that. What do you think on that? Think that's a good idea?
I don't have a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in trying to keep people safe.
I don't think it would harm anyone.
Is that infringing on somebody's? I don't think so.
No, you're going to a public area that you're paying to get into. I think that's their prerogative.
Let's be honest. The law is you cannot carry. You're not supposed to have a weapon out there.
Yep.
Well, I got to back up here. In the buildings or on the grounds? Is that a little?
There's
different?
Probably a technical difference, but at the same time, when you have to pay to get in through the gate, I think that. I don't think it's out of line for the state fair to say, no, you should not have a weapon. I agree with that. I think that's especially, I mean, this was announced before this past weekend, but especially after this past weekend, I think that is.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
No, that is.
I know they ran into some issues in Milwaukee
mm-hmm.
with their laws and, what are we going to do, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an outer perimeter, an inside perimeter. Okay.
When you got to do it, you got to do it.
I don't have a problem with that.
Exactly. Especially when it's a private event. It's not technically private. It's the state fair, but you have to pay to get in.
Let's be honest. The state fair gets a bit rowdy sometimes.
It can, especially you get at night.
I used to partake quite a bit, but with my vision loss, especially at night, I don't much anymore.
Sure.
And I did go the one year I remember right after the flood, and it was fight after fight after fight. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, and I can't see. So I'm just bumping into people. And the first thing they do is fight. And I'm like,
what are we doing?
This is I'm all in favor of the safety. That's good.
Because I know there has been a couple of years ago, there's a really bad assault at the state fair in one of the bathrooms where someone was injured very severely. And I mean, it wasn't a gun involved, of course, but it's just one of those things to try to prevent any of that. The most of that you can, I think, is completely fair to them to do.
Yeah. I'm all in favor.
Yeah.
Now, if it slows down the process at the gate, that might be not fun.
Especially at some of those busy times. If you're getting there at like a early morning, like right after the state fair parade, you try to go to get in, and all of a sudden the line is quarter mile long. That's not going to be too fun. But
like it used to be the thing. If you're in the parade, you got in free.
Pretty sure that's still how it works.
So do they have to go through the middle?
Yeah, that's an interesting. concept. That's beyond us. Yeah, we'll have to find out about that. But it should all go seamlessly at this point. They have that well down to a T. I know a couple people on board of the State Fair Parade. They're good people. They've done it before. It'll go smoothly as it always does. And it's the parade. It's always fun.
Okay, yeah, just be careful with that candy.
Exactly. Got to watch out for that. It gets a little excessive sometimes. It's like
get excited and dart out into.
They do. That's why you got to.
I'd hate to see a Shriner car accident with a child.
Yeah, just worst case scenario stuff. But didn't something like that happen in Mandan a few years back at their 4th of July parade or something? A kid got hit.
Yes, and I was deeply involved with the hockey boosters for years, and that became a very questionable. Because, like everybody else, kids want to get into the fair for free. So, yeah, they'd all jump on the trailer, the float, or whatever.
And all of a sudden, you have 50 people on a float.
And when you get that many kids around doing any one thing, if you don't have enough supervision, things risks are taken.
Exactly. Just more opportunity for things to happen at that stage. Yeah. Yeah. But State Fair coming to town starting on Friday this week, going through the next Saturday. It'll be it's always time. Who doesn't love some fair food?
Well, I don't the next day.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't. I have. Oh, clearly I like it, but if it agrees with me, always it's the questionable part. And it's never cheap to get in, and it's going to be expensive. But it's the state event. Exactly. It's the fair. It's part of the aura of it all. You going to any concerts this year?
I used to be a fanatic of going to the concerts. I've kind of, for reasons
that we mentioned earlier,
shied away from.
Which is completely
there's some, I'd like to go to, but no, I can hear them from my house.
So there you go.
Nice.
That's half the battle.
I just shied away. I don't know yet. I might still be going, but a lot depends on weather too. I'm not a fan of the heat.
Once again, I'm a big guy. That heat doesn't agree with me.
No. So I don't know yet.
See how it plays out.
I'm not a good planner anyways. I just kind of
play it by ear. There you go. I love that. That makes it more interesting that way. You get you knock the hard points out, and past that, you just kind of roll with it. What else? I know there was one other story I kind of wanted to talk about before we get off too. The whole Anita Knutson case and trial.
Okay, that's an interesting one.
With her murder. We're going to take a big turn here before we get off. But so that got moved out of Minot, right?
Yes, I believe to Grand Forks County.
It did. And they just so they are going to start the jury selection process going
So
forward.
You mean there's going to be another delay?
Yeah, it's still on track to happen next year, but the very first preliminary jury selection is going to start happening now. So the process has begun in Grand Forks. That's a horrible story that took way too long to get. It's not solved yet, but to get progressed to the stages that it has. And I think they should have made the decision to move it out of Minot a lot sooner than they did.
That probably would have, because who didn't see that coming?
Exactly. It got delayed, 2-3 years at this point, and another 6 months till anything happens.
More than likely.
Yeah.
And there was a survey by a lawyer put out on Facebook, one of the groups. And I'm like, well, this is odd, but it maybe wasn't such a bad move on that lawyer's part. Because now, guess what's happening?
Exactly. You get your bases covered that way. And now look at it.
Yeah,
it's a tough situation for everyone involved there, I'm sure. But hopefully, without being too long, they're going to be able to get some clarity on everything and finally get some real closure for it.
And will it be justice? I don't know.
Yeah,
but it'll be closure either way.
One way or the other. They'll at least know that this very major portion of it can be ruled out one way or the other. And normally we go over a lot of events that are going on in Minot this week, but most of that's just
kind of the calm before the storm.
Exactly.
Is really what it is.
So much of it is going to be the state fair the next week and a half, 2 weeks at this point. That is Minot for that last portion of July here.
Yeah, everything revolves around that. We had down in Bismarck, they had McQuaid's.
Yep.
And it's just that kind of weird this year. The fair's a week earlier than normal.
Yeah, a lot of times it goes into that first week of August or first couple days kind of thing.
Maybe the rural community likes that because harvest hasn't really started, or
not quite yet at this point. You might start seeing a couple things dabbling into it, but for the most part, it should be ahead of that.
Yeah, otherwise just 5-hour count meetings.
You betcha. It was fun. Well, Leif, anything else you want to talk about before we get
No,
rolling?
I think that was a pretty good discussion.
I think we did well. We went for what is it? A little over an hour. I think we did great. Thanks for being on the show with us. It was a great discussion we had today.
I will fill in anytime you need me.
Gladly, great, appreciate it, Leif. Thanks again, everyone, for watching Minot Talk. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all the fun things. Check us out, YouTube, Facebook, and thanks for watching.